Alright, so we're picking up where we left off from. We are on Genesis 13. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go and dedicate every firstborn among the Israelites of the first offspring to be born, from both human and animal belonging to me." So Moses said to the people, "This is a day to remember forever, the day we left Egypt, the place of our slavery. Today the Lord has brought us out with his power and his mighty hand. Remember, eat no food containing yeast. On this day in early spring, in the month of Abib, we have been set free. You must celebrate this event in this month each year after the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites. He swore to your ancestors, and he would give you the land, and the land flowing with milk and honey. The 7 days of bread you must eat will be without yeast. Then the 7 days to celebrate the feast of the Lord, and the bread will be without yeast during those 7 days. In fact, there must be no yeast in any of the bread that would be found within the borders in the land during this time. On the 7th day, you must explain to your children, on the 7th day, you must explain to your children, I am celebrating what the Lord did when we left out of Egypt. This is an annual festival that will be a visual sign to you, like a mark branded on your hand and on your forehead. Let this remind you always to recite the teaching of the Lord. With the strong hand of the Lord rescued us from Egypt. So to observe these decrees of these festivals at the appointed time of each year. This is what we must do to fulfill the Lord's promise he swore to you and your ancestors. He has given you this land, the land of the Canaanites we now live in. You will present the firstborn son and the firstborn male animal to the Lord, for they belong to him. The firstborn donkey may be bought back from the Lord, and present a lamb with the young goat in its place. But if you do not buy it back, you must break its neck. However, you must buy back the firstborn son. In the future, your children will ask you, what does all this mean? In the future, your children will ask you, what does all this mean? And then you will tell them, with the power of the mighty hand of the Lord, he brought us out of Egypt from the place of our slavery. Pharaoh's stubbornness refused to let him go. So the Lord killed all the firstborn males throughout the land of Egypt, both animal and the firstborn males. So the Lord expects that the firstborn sons are always brought back. This ceremony will be like the mark from our hand and our forehead. This is to remember that the power of the Lord's mighty hand brought us out of Egypt. When Pharaoh finally let the people go, God did not lead them along the long road. God did not lead them along the main road to run through the Philistines' territory, even though it was the shortest route to the promised land. God said, if the people are faced with the battle, they might change their mind and return to Egypt. So God led them on the route around the way through the wilderness, through the Red Sea. Thus, the Israelites left Egypt like an army ready for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, and he had with him, for Joseph had made the son of Israel swore to him that he would do so. So God will certainly come and help you. It says, when he does, you must take my bones with you in my place. And the Israelites left Succoth, and they camped in Ephraim, in the edge of the wilderness. The Lord went ahead of them, and during the day he guided them with the pillar of the cloud that provided light, and at night with the pillar of fire. It also allowed them to travel during the day and night, and the Lord did not remove the pillar of cloud or the pillar of fire from its place from the front of the people. And now we're going to Exodus 14. Then the Lord gave these instructions to Moses. Order the Israelites to turn back to the camp of Pilhereth between Megul and the sea. Camp there along the shore across the Belathan. Then from Belathan. Then Pharaoh will think the Israelites are confused. They are trapped in the wilderness. And once again, I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after you. And I have planned this in order that I may display the glory to Pharaoh and his whole army after the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites camped there as they were told. When the word reached the king of Egypt that the Israelites had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their mind. "What have we done letting the Israelite slaves go away?" They asked Pharaoh. So Pharaoh hardened his heart, the chariot, and he called his troops. He took with him 600 of Egyptians' best chariots, along with the rest of the chariots of Egypt, each with the commander. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh and the kings of Egypt. So he chased after the people of Israel, who had left with the fist raised in defiance. Then the Egyptians chased after them with the forces. The Egyptians chased after them with the forces of Pharaoh's army, and all the horses, and all the chariots, and all his charioteers, and and his troops. And the Egyptians caught up with the people of Israel as they were camping beside the shore of Pilharoth, across the Balfon. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and they panicked. When they saw that the Egyptians were taken over, they cried out to the Lord, and they said, "Moses, why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Wasn't it enough that our graves were in Egypt? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you that this would happen while we were still in Egypt?" He said, "Leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than to be a corpse in the wilderness." But Moses told the people, "Don't be afraid. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today." And the Egyptians you see today you will never see again. The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to get moving. Pick up your staff, raise your hand over the sea, divide the water, and the Israelites can walk through the middle of the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the heart of the Egyptians, and they will chase after the Israelites. And my great glory will be displayed through Pharaoh and his troops and his chariots and his charioteers." It says, "When the glory is displayed to them, all Egypt will see my glory and know that I am the Lord." Then the angel of God, who had been leading the people of Israel, moved to the rear of the camp, and the pillar of cloud also moved from the front and stood behind them. And the cloud settled between the Egyptians and the Israelites' camp as the darkness fell, and the cloud turned into fire, lighting up the night. But the Egyptians and the Israelites did not approach each other at night. Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the water with a strong east wind. And the wind blew all night, and the seabed was dry. So the people of Israel walked through the middle of the sea and the dry ground with the walls of water on each side. Then the Israelites and all of the Pharaoh's horses and the chariot and the charioteers chased them in the middle of the sea. But just before dawn, the Lord looked down at the Egyptians' army from the pillar of the fire and the cloud, and he threw his forces into confusion. He twisted their chariot wheels and made the chariots difficult to drive. "Let's get out of here, away from the Israelites," the Egyptians shouted. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Then all the Egyptians had reached the other side, and the Lord said to Moses, "Raise your hand over the sea again, and the water will rush back and cover the Egyptians and their chariot and the charioteers." So the sun began to rise. Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the water rushed back into its usual place. And the Egyptians tried to escape, but the Lord swept them up into the sea. Then the water returned and covered all the chariot and the charioteers and the entire army of Pharaoh. Of all the Egyptians who had chased the Israelites into the sea, not a single one survived. But the Lord of Israel had walked through the Right. But the people of Israel had walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground, as the water stood up like walls on both sides. That that is how he rescued the Israelites from the hand of the Egyptians that day. And the Israelites saw the bodies of all the Egyptians washed up on the seashore. When the people of Israel saw the mighty power that the Lord had unleashed against the Egyptians, they were filled with an awe before him. They put their faith in the Lord and his servant Moses. And we are going to stop there. That is Exodus 14:31.